Welcome or welcome back to Senior Cash Stuffing. In this second video of the series, we'll be covering step 2, creating spending categories and refining our budget. We'll be dividing our expenses into 3 categories, defining funds by using the basic budget we created in the first video, and finally identifying the categories we'll be stuffing that cash into. If you haven't seen the introduction video, I highly recommend watching it first. You can click here. If you watch this on TV, the link doesn't appear, but I'll put the link at the top of the description box below for easy access. It's probably a good idea to watch that one first because this may not make sense otherwise, but it's totally your call. Let's get started with dividing our expenses. We separated our expenses between fixed and variable in the first video and created a basic budget. Now we'll dig a little deeper and get more specific with our categories. There are 3 categories. Needs, those that are essential expenses like food, home, and healthcare. Wants, those are non-essential expenses like dining out, hobbies, and entertainment. And then there are saving expenses for emergencies, travel, and retirement. There is a popular income distribution model called the 50-30-20 budget rule, where 50% of your income is set for needs, 30% is set for wants, and 20% is set for savings. It's a good place to start if you have no idea how to divide your income, but you can change it to fit your needs. Maybe 60-30-10 works better for you, or maybe 50-20-30. Your needs expenses should be your primary concern, so do whatever it takes to cover them first. This is just a suggestion to help you understand how it works if you're not sure where to start. I know I learn better with a visual, so let's switch to an overhead view and look at the example budget we started in the notebook from the first video. This entire budget will be written out by hand in a notebook and using a calculator because not everyone is computer savvy. Once you get the idea, run with whatever way works best for you. Okay, here's our fixed expenses with the due dates and the amounts owed. I made a couple of changes since the first video. We have pretty customary bills here: rent, utilities, cell phone, credit card. Though the utilities have variable amounts, they are still considered fixed expenses because you owe them every month, just like your other monthly bills. Make a guess on the utility amounts, or take your last 3 or 4 bills, add them up, and divide to get an average amount. So let's say my average amount is $85 a month. I know in the past, winter can really increase the amount, so I add to my guess. I would rather have more budgeted than less. Currently, I budget $130 for my utilities. Most times I have a surplus, but it's been cold here lately, so my December bill was $122 and my January was $117. So when I do have a surplus, I either save it or add it to a credit card payment. All right, based on our fixed bills, the total is $1,472. Next, we have our variable expenses. Let me get this centered here. Okay. I added a miscellaneous category and highly suggest that you have one as well for unexpected or forgotten expenses. It can be used or saved based on your needs. Maybe you were a little over budget on your groceries, or maybe you have a personal expense that won't be covered by just the cash in your personal category. Use it as you see fit. All right, based on our variable guesses, the total is $545. The total for both expense categories is $2,017. Let's move on to income, the easiest part. In this example, we receive our Social Security on the first of the month, or in the amount of $1,700, and our pension in the amount of $500 on the 12th. So our total income is $2,200. Now comes the moment of truth. We list our income of $2,200 and our expenses of $2,017 right below it. Subtract the expenses from the income, and this is what our discretionary amount is, $183. There's several things that we can do with this extra income, like use it as padding to cover any math errors, increase our variable amounts, or use it for fun savings envelopes. We have many options here. I'll cover them in another video though. Let's go to our calendar now and see what income will cover which bills. Obviously, Social Security will cover most of the expenses since it's the greater amount, but you can divide it up. With the exception of rent, all of our bills are due after both pay dates. So let's dive in. First, we'll start with a new page for fixed expenses. We'll be working with 3 columns. First, start column 1 with Social Security as the title and the income amount directly below. Second, we'll start another column for the pension income and then a third column for totals to keep track of our calculations. As you can see, 1,700 plus the 500 equals the 2,200 for a total. Now let's go through each of our fixed expenses, starting with rent. Because it's due on the 1st and we get our Social Security on the 1st, that's a fairly easy one. Rent will be covered with Social Security. So we'll list it like this. Subtracting 950 from the 1,700, we're left with $750. How do I know this? Because no, I'm not that smart. I have a cheat sheet on the side. Okay, this will remain 500 because we haven't subtracted anything from it. So we'll list 950 here. Everything will be in the lines. And we subtract 950 from 2,200 and we're left with 1,250. If you were to add 750 and 500, you would also get 1,250. This is how we're going to keep track and make sure our math is correct, because you certainly don't want to find out that it's incorrect when you get way down here. So doing it as we go will make sure our numbers are correct. Okay, the next thing on our list is a car payment for $200. Okay, so we're going to list car, 200. Oh, in my cheat sheet, what I did was I split this. This is something you can do too. It all depends on how you want to split up your expenses. Okay, so let's go with $100 for each one. So $200 is the car payment. This I'll subtract it. Okay, so we have $650 here left. Ooh, my rating's getting kind of shady here. And we have $10.50 here. Okay, subtract, subtract, subtract. All right, our next expense was for gas. And this is like the heating type of gas. All right, now this one I think, let me make sure. All right, we guesstimated $97 for this. Okay, so this is going to all come out of Social Security. So we have 0 here, and we're going to put 97 here. Okay, so we have 553 here. And 400 here. And then 97 from 1050 leaves us 953. Okay, now you get the idea. So I'm going to show you my cheat sheet here. This is everything. Okay, now when it comes right down to it, all right, so after everything is said and done, we made all of our deductions. Okay, so let's see, we have electric, credit card, and our cell phone with internet. We did all the deductions. That left us with 433 in Social Security, 295 in pension, for a total of $728. Now, just to make sure my calculations are still correct, what I did was I subtracted the $545 that we expected for variable expenses to leave us with a discretionary income of $183. And that's exactly what we had. Where is it? Down here. So we're all balanced out, so all of our math is correct. Yay. Like I said, you don't want to find out down here that your math is wrong up here because you're not balancing out over here. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for variable expenses. I'll bring up my cheat sheet. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit here. Okay. Now, for variable expenses, you pretty much do the same thing. You can split them up or take them all out of one, like say check, Social Security, or all out of pension, whichever you choose. But it just depends on what your needs are. Like for instance, I split groceries here, $150 because that's what we budgeted in our guesstimate, 150 and 150 because that's how I like to shop. I don't I go as I need it. Some people like to go all and do their shopping like all at one time. So maybe you want to budget the entire $300 out of Social Security. That's entirely up to you. And the same goes with, like, say you're dining out. In this instance, I put $100 all in Social Security. But me personally, I would split it between the two because if I left it all in one place and I had all of that in my wallet at one time, I would probably spend it all at one time, way in the beginning of the month, and then not have anything towards the end of the month because I know myself. So that's why I would split it between the two checks. Okay, so that pretty much is the same thing, for the variable expenses. So here we balanced out. So we have $93 left in Social Security and $90 left in pension, giving us a total discretionary amount of $183. As I said, I'll be explaining the discretionary spending and stuffing in another video because that's a whole fun one. Here's a tip for your variable expenses. In the future, when you make adjustments to your variable guesses, and I expect you'll do that several times until it flows better for you, start the changes with your next full income cycle to keep everything on track. In other words, start with the pay date where you begin replenishing your cash and you start over again. Okay, the last thing I want to cover is other variable expenses. Let's see, where do I have that? Right up here. Okay. Honestly, I don't know if that's what they're called, but that made sense to me, so I'm sticking with it. We're not actually going to do anything with them other than pay attention to their due dates so we can plan ahead. I write each of these on a sticky note with a due date and an amount, then place the sticky note in my calendar a couple of months prior to the actual due date. The car insurance and home insurance in our example are both due in March and actually my due dates. I place a sticky note in January to make sure I'm aware and start saving for it, so that by the time the due date rolls around, hopefully I have all of it saved already. I was able to pay $300 in cash for my oil change and unexpected car battery. By stuffing for my 6 pay dates over the last 2 months for car maintenance, I paid beautiful, lovely cash. I did have to combine it with another category, but that was okay. I was excited. I didn't have to put it on my credit card. Well, that's it for this video. Whew, that was a lot. Thank you so much for watching. In the third video of this series, I'll be covering Step 3, allocating funds, and Step 4, making purchases from your cash envelope and using your debit card. If you didn't get a chance to see the first video, you can watch it here. If you find value in my content, please like and subscribe. Thanks again, and don't forget to sprinkle some sparkle. Bye.